Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I once read somewhere that more than 90% of the people who participated in a large-scale survey claimed that they shouted about the same thing when they crashed their car. It was not one of those questions to which you are offered several ready-made formulations of the answer. No, it was, write your own answer. Now is probably not the time for such jokes, but I literally just joined this majority. It occurred to me that for the first time in my life, I was the cause of the collision. No, I've been in accidents before, through someone else's fault, but right now it was different. On impact, my face was dented into the airbag. In those moments, I didn't feel any pain, but at the same time, I realized a couple of good things. Firstly, the liquid in the radiator has a characteristic smell, so I had no doubt that it was damaged. The brake fluid also stinks, and I smelled its nasty smell in the cabin. Surprisingly, I was not disoriented. And in general, everything turned out quite differently from what I had previously assumed. As I sat locked inside and pondered the situation, it occurred to me that I really had no idea how things were going to turn out. And the second good thing is that I didn't smell gasoline or smoke, although my car is obviously out of order. It looks like I'm not going back to work today, after all. In the back of my mind, I thought that my pickup truck would crash into a wall, after which windows would fly everywhere. Is that how it really happened? Damn it, no. I didn't expect what happened. In fact, my pickup truck not only crashed into a wall, but also continued to move until almost its entire body was inside. If I could turn around and look in the rearview mirror now, I'd know how far I'd driven into the room. But with my face embedded in a hefty airbag, I couldn't see a damn thing. I don't know exactly how much time passed, but I heard, as if from afar, the voice of some guy who anxiously asked if I was injured. With my lips kissing the airbag in French, how the hell was I supposed to respond to that? The noise outside grew louder, and then a lady screamed, "There are wounded people there. Oh my God, this is bad." Well, as far as I could tell from how I felt, she definitely wasn't talking about me, and that made me doubly happy. The surrounding space was torn apart by the sounds of approaching sirens, which seemed to be howling from all sides. At the same time, the sounds of the fire engines were different from the sounds of the paramedics' sirens. I assume that both of them are about to appear at the scene of the incident. It was some kind of circus. First aid to the seriously injured. What about me? They hooked a chain with a hook behind my truck and used a winch to pull it back into the bright light of the midday sun. I got off with a few scratches and bruises. The second ambulance was busy loading the gurney. The first ambulance had already loaded up and left a few minutes ago. The cops also arrived at the scene, where without them. After a quick search, they shoved my ass, covered with handcuffed hands, into the back seat of a patrol car. It looks like losing control of your car can still lead to trouble. Well, at least I wasn't an immigrant facing 110 years in prison. I don't know why they didn't take me away right away. Anyway, this respite gave me the opportunity to turn my head and assess the damage done. The front of my pickup truck rammed into the wall, taking out the door, window, and at the same time the wall air conditioner. It seems that my beast car did not stop until it drove the bed on springs in the room all the way into the bathroom, like a billiard ball into a pocket. Rooms 6 and 10, located next door, seemed to be completely intact. But it was as if a hurricane had passed through room number 8, so she temporarily fell out of the housing fund. Thank the eggs that at least it was a one-story building. My blood boiled with rage when, looking at the scene through the windows of the patrol car, I noticed Joe sneaking around this motel. Well, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I was glad that I had radically dealt with some cases that stank of shit. At the station where I was dragged, I refused to talk to the cops. To my great surprise, the orange jumpsuit turned out to be not as uncomfortable as I had theoretically assumed, but the bunk on which my mortal bones were thrown, yes. I wonder how that pair of skunks from number 8 are doing. As I said, the calculation was that my pickup truck would at best just blow out the window in their room. Nevertheless, the result achieved turned out to be so good that a satisfied smile kept creeping over my slightly rumpled face. I'm sorry, where are my manners? Let me introduce myself. My name is Vince Clancy. I'm 23 and my fiancée is the same age. After graduating from high school, we goofed around for a while and eventually jumped in. Without waiting for her growing belly to become an obvious fact to everyone around, Ginny and I got married. 2 months later, she suffered a miscarriage. Although it saddened me, Ginny took this loss too much to heart. After 6 months of family counseling, We jointly decided to wait a few years before trying again. However, her unpredictable mood swings continue to this day. Among other things, the shotgun wedding also disrupted our college plans. So instead of getting a higher education, I had to get a job in order to practice the profession of an electrician. The American idiom shotgun wedding has a literal translation in Russian, which even corresponds to the stylistic coloring of the English expression. It is a wedding on the fly, that is marriage as a result of an unplanned pregnancy. Now this term is less and less common in English-speaking countries, but in the good old days, the father of a girl who was unexpectedly knocked up could unequivocally threaten a guy with a shotgun if he suddenly started balking and did not want to marry her. JFC note: Ginny started working as a temporary employee, mainly as a receptionist in the office. She often took over for just a day, but sometimes she stayed for a whole week if someone she was replacing went on vacation. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. I played football in high school and was pretty good. Ginny was also a member of a team of 6 cheerleaders at basketball. She attended all my football games, and I attended those basketball meetings where she performed with her support group. While her motive was probably my support, for me the main reason was to keep predatory wolves away from my fiancé. These big-ass basketball players, along with their friends, figuratively speaking, constantly turned on the pressure all over the court, trying to tear Ginny away from me. I can honestly say that none of them has succeeded in this. The main star of that high school basketball team was Joe Clark. He and I were neither friends nor even friends of friends, moving in completely different circles, although this did not stop him from making ambiguous offers to Ginny from time to time. She only laughed maliciously at his attempts. I tried not to pay much attention to it, which was not easy, because I've always been a pretty jealous guy by nature. While I was the honorary winner of the state football championship, Joe's team took only the 2nd place in its conference. All the honors go to the winning teams, and our basketball team performed so-so. As a result, Joe received a scholarship to study and board at the nearest Division I school, so after graduation he went to the campus summer training league. Surprisingly, as soon as the new season started, Joe started getting playing time. If you didn't have to play against a team whose players were able to aggressively intercept the ball, it looked pretty decent on the court. Clark always brought one of his buddies to home games, homecoming, and similar shows. One of Joe's closest friends, named Nolan Larson, was the star of his basketball team, and at the same time an unbearable asshole on a personal level. As his school's team was fighting for a playoff spot after the regular season ended, fans treated Larson like a god. Nolan was also constantly hitting on Ginny, and sometimes he did it even in front of me, of course, knowing at the same time that she was married. Every time Ginny turned Larson down, laughing at his attempts, but he didn't stop pestering her, so from time to time I had to step in and give them both a hard time. This only seemed to anger Ginny, who claimed that she had everything under control and that I was making a big deal out of a molehill. Obviously, Joe and Nolan were best friends, as Nolan was always by Joe's side during his team's return visits to our city. Instead of putting up with their antics, I usually found a way to keep Ginny and me busy with something else. Home basketball games were only on weekends, but the summer holidays lasted much longer. It was much more difficult, and there were several arguments between Ginny and me about it. "Are you my husband or my spy?" she told me angrily one day. "Actually, I'm a big girl and I can take care of myself, and these guys are just big braggarts and cheeky and nothing more. Just leave it alone, Vince. Yeah, it's easier said than done when you have the kind of jealous temper I've always had." The situation was aggravated by the fact that by that time Ginny had grown out of a clumsy teenager very pleasantly rounded in all the right and attractive places. When she jumped out to perform her dance number on the set, she was accompanied by whistling and cat-like screams from the guys from all sides. Was I proud of her? Yes. Were you jealous? Again, yes. Was I crazy? I didn't think so then. But now, Now, in light of what happened, it's worth thinking about. "Mr. Clancy, my name is Scott Jensen. I am your court-appointed lawyer." A very young man in a suit appeared in front of me. Damn it, I think he's only a few years older than me. "I see by the clock that it's about 2, so good afternoon, Scott. You can call me Vince," I said. "All right," he nodded. "What do you remember about crashing your car, Vince?" "That's it." "Was this a deliberate action on your part?" "Not really," I shook my head. "I just wanted to scare them. I couldn't even imagine that a truck driving so slowly could cause so much damage." "The police report says that you were driving at about 30. almost 50 kilometers per h, approx JFC, when you crashed into a motel room. I wouldn't say it's slow, this young lawyer chuckled. When I clenched my hands on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white and I was overcome with rage, I may have reflexively pressed the slipper into the floor, but I did not intend to destroy the walls at all. It's worth considering, I suggested. Doubtful. It's unlikely that this will serve as an excuse in court, he drawled. Right now, you are facing 2 charges of assault using your vehicle, that is, a pickup truck. Except that this could change for the worse in the event that Mr. Larson dies. Then they can add an attempted murder. Well, is it that bad? Yes, because you drove into the wall, the air conditioner flew across the room, and crashed into Mr. Larson right in the small of his back. He suffered a lot of internal injuries, but the plus is that it may have saved both of their lives. The impact from the air conditioner knocked them onto the bed a moment before your car caught up with this unit. Wow, I can imagine the picture. I raised an eyebrow. And how is she doing there? Your wife? The air conditioner hit Mr. Larson in the coccyx area with such force that his pelvis broke several facial bones. She lost most of her front teeth, and Mr. Larson got a few specific ones. Unforgettable scars in a certain area, if you know what I mean. Tisk, tisk, tisk. What a pity. I nodded with a pitiful expression, not feeling, however, any sympathy for the victims of adultery. Besides that, are they relatively intact? Oh no, it's not that rosy. They both have a lot of other broken bones. Alas, the mattress didn't really protect them when the truck hit their bed right to the bathroom. It may happen that Mr. Larson will be paralyzed. Damn, I'm trying my best to cry, Scott, but it's not happening, I complained. Yes, I understand you. How did you know they were in that room? It's simple. After they entered and closed the door behind them, the number 8 was painted on it. That's how I found out they were in room 8. Are you new to this business, Scott? The young communist felt a little uncomfortable and turned crimson. Let me rephrase that. How did you know to be there that day and at that time? Oh, that's what you mean. Well, I bought a bouquet of flowers for Ginny as a surprise anniversary gift. If she had enough time, I was going to invite her to lunch. These days she was working part-time instead of some lady who went on maternity leave. When I turned the corner, I saw her standing on the sidewalk in front of her office building. While I was waiting for the traffic light to turn green, a bright sports car pulled up next to her and she got into it. Well, I just followed them. So what happened at that motel? So you decided to find out the relationship with them? Well, their car stopped at the check-in area and Ginny got out of it. At that time, I was still waiting on the main road for a traffic window to appear in order to turn left into the parking lot. That sports car went around the building and parked, so I followed it. A few minutes later, Ginny left the reception and headed for number 8. He met her at the door at about the same time she got there. The rest, as they say, is history. So you don't know what they were doing there? He asked me a very naive question. Listen, Scott, are you really new to this kind of thing? I leaned back in my chair in surprise. What were they doing there? Are you serious? Do you think they were planning a fancy surprise dinner for me on my anniversary? Maybe he read poetry to her and she taught him the mysteries of macrame? Or did they work together on sloppy seconds after all? Vince, I'm here to help you. He held his palms out in front of him. I can't help you if I don't know all the facts. How long did you sit in your pickup truck before you attacked them? I think a couple of minutes and then rage clouded my mind. I lost my temper. I won't even embellish it, just click. And my old pickup truck is already in the wall and my face is in the depths of the airbag. Like I said, I just wanted to scare them. Asterisk, 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 Ginny slowly floated out of her prolonged half-sleep. When her mind was more or less cleared of the remnants of oblivion, she scribbled something in a notebook that the nurse had left for her. Where am I? What happened? She wrote dancing, uneven letters on the paper. The nurse, who was busy at her couch, looked at her notebook, read what she had written, and answered aloud in a soothing voice. Mrs. Clancy, you are in the general hospital. You were injured when a truck crashed into your room. You have multiple bone fractures and internal injuries. The doctor has given you a sedative. If you still feel pain, I can ask her to increase the dose of medicine. How are you feeling? Ginny, who had come to her senses, rather smartly wrote down the following set of questions. It's like my face is bandaged and my mouth is taped. Why is my head fixed? And I can't move my legs or my other arm. Well, your arm and both legs are in a cast, the nurse replied, running her eyes over what Ginny had written. In fact, your whole body is in a cast. And yes, your face is almost completely bandaged, and your lips are sewn with surgical thread. When the doctor examines you again and gives his permission, a detective is waiting in the waiting room who has a few questions for you. Can I call him then? Of course, the victim scribbled. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. It's been about 3 hours. Mrs. Clancy, I'm Detective Green. How are you doing with your memory? What is it? Asked a middle-aged policeman who appeared in the room, coming closer to the couch with Ginny and showing his ID for a few seconds. Scratching with a pencil in her unruly fingers, she wrote in a notebook, I think it's not very good. I don't remember getting into an accident. The nurse said I was hit by a truck. What can you remember about Tuesday morning? Slowly putting letters into words. Do you mean this morning? Detective Green craned his neck to look at his notebook and shook his head sympathetically. Actually, it's Friday. You've been here for 10 days now. I think they've been keeping you in a medically induced coma all this time. The scribbles jumped harder under the pencil, awkwardly held by trembling fingers. Oh my God. On Tuesday, I put on a pretty dress and went to work. What were you doing at lunchtime? The detective asked a new question. A pause in silence. Slightly trembling fingers froze, clutching a pencil. The eyes on the bandaged face darted back and forth across the room, which lasted for several long seconds. Finally, a new line appeared in the notebook, as if reluctantly. I went to have lunch with a friend. Does this friend have a name? Detective Green leaned forward slightly and raised an eyebrow, throwing a scapegoat in the way. Nolan Larson. And where did you go for lunch? The restless but tenacious cop continued to dig deep. Pencils can't lie, unlike humans. I don't remember. Does the name of the Happy Day Motel remind you of anything? With tears soaking the bandages, a new line appeared in the notebook. I rented a room while Nolan was parking. Was that when I was hit by a car? You must be friends with luck, the detective chuckled. No, you were in the room with Mr. Larson when the pickup truck crashed into your room. More tears and pencil scratching on paper. Did someone lose control of their truck? Not exactly like that. It looks like your little private party turned out to be a completely different anniversary gift than your husband expected. His hands were shaking so hard that the cop could barely make out the next scribble. Our anniversary? Oh my God. So you didn't get prior approval from your husband for yours? Entertainment at the motel? As a quick-witted and experienced cop in a variety of life conflicts, Detective Green was sure of the answer in advance, but he couldn't help but ask a question. No, an entry in the notebook appeared almost instantly. Well, Mrs. Clancy, that's all I wanted to ask you at the moment. Good luck with your recovery. With these words, the satisfied detective, nodding to the nurse, moved to the exit. Physically exhausted and mentally devastated, Ginny dropped the now unnecessary pencil and closed her eyes. Tears appeared in the corners again. In the same place, in the ward opposite. Mr. Larson, can you hear me? The nurse turned to the doctor. He has not answered since he was informed that his spine was broken, and he will never be able to walk again. His promising career was cut short, wasn't it? The surgeon stated the obvious. The nurse shook her head. It's too expensive a price to pay to get a little pleasure from a married woman. My friends and family offered to bail me out. When I'm done with this shitty show, I'm getting the hell out of this town. Fan threats of violence against me for the early termination of Nolan's brilliant career are not worth carelessly walking the streets before the trial. I'll do my time, and then I'll just disappear. Look for the wind in the field. Ginny visited me about 10 weeks after the incident. She rolled in a wheelchair and then hobbled on crutches to a chair in the visitor's room. Hey, Ginny, I see you look cheerful, I greeted her appearance. Her voice was steady. I'm sorry that all this happened because of me. Did you really want to hurt me physically? Nah, I just wanted to scare you. How's your throat doing? It's not funny, Vince, she scowled. You have to believe me that I've never cheated on you before, and you interrupted it before it went too far. By the way, how did you even know? Well, I bought a bouquet of flowers for our anniversary, I highlighted the word, and I was going to surprise you at work. As a result, a much bigger surprise awaited me. If you wanted to leave me, why didn't you just say so? I didn't want to leave. I do not know why I did it, she mumbled. He was such a big star and I don't know. I fell for his tricks and flattery. Do you already know that he has leg paralysis now? Yes, someone has already told me about it. Listen, maybe you should sign him up for the Paralympic team. I made a good suggestion. You two would make a great team for a potato sack race. Gold medals, fame, and all that. The sponsors of crutches and wheelchairs will be delighted. I think I deserve it, Ginny replied sourly, rather upset. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry about everything. I hope your trial goes well. It looks like you had a busy program planned for that day, I suggested half-assuredly. When they packed me into the patrol car, I saw Joe Clark snooping around the motel. Will you tell me how he knew you and Larson were going to be there? Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Vince. She managed to gasp before the floodgates of tears opened. To tell the truth, I wasn't jealous anymore. That day, once my love for Ginny died, it no longer mattered to me what she was doing or with whom. It just made me angry at myself for being so trusting all this time. Hey, if you can find where they towed my truck, then the flowers I bought for you for our anniversary are probably still in the front seat somewhere. Oh, and by the way, I heard you took a bite out of the big basketball star at that motel. Did you like it? Unfortunately, Ginny didn't say anything. She just waved me away dejectedly, clumsily got out from behind the table and hobbled back to her wheelchair. It's always nice when you have visitors, especially in such a boring place where I'm sitting my ass right now. It's at least a little entertaining and uplifting. Asterisk, 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 in the millstones of the system. The weeks melted away like spring snow under the rays of the bright sun as the trial approached. During this time, I have rejected all offers of bail. When the trial was only a few days away, I agreed to a plea bargain. The year I spent behind bars seemed better to me than the big numbers I would have faced if the district attorney had managed to convince the jury that I deserved to be charged with attempted murder and punished for it. When the basketball team, deprived of its star Nolan, lost, I received a bunch of hate mail. When they lost their chances of reaching the playoffs, death threats were sent to my address. It's just a fucking game, people. One of Scott's assistants filed for divorce on my behalf. It was under consideration, and everyone had already signed the papers in the right places. Very soon I will be alone again, like a finger. One day, my lawyer unexpectedly visited me. Hi, Scott, it's been a while. What does my immediate future look like? The district attorney is offering time off and 2 years on parole, he replied. Scott, tell him I want to leave the state as soon as I'm released. With the constant death threats, parole will not work. Show him the damn letters. Try to negotiate with him. The following week, I was transferred to a detention center, where I was to serve the remainder of my recently reduced sentence for a Category 5 crime, of which I pleaded guilty. I would have been released in a few weeks, and I was going to leave this state on the same day. With my depleted financial assets, the status of a convicted felon, and no hope of a decent credit rating for many years, the future ahead of me was painted in rather gloomy colors. A few days before my scheduled release, Ginny visited me again. By this time, she was walking relatively normally, with only a slight limp on her left leg. What brings you here this time, Ginny? We're divorced now, aren't we? I asked her sarcastically when I was taken to the visiting room. My previous visit did not go as well as I had hoped. I wanted to apologize to you again. You wouldn't be here if I wasn't there. Well, Ginny, I was locked up in these walls because I couldn't control my anger. It's my fault, and that's it. I don't deny that I lost my temper at that moment. I could just leave and file for divorce remotely or disappear altogether. I'm currently serving time for what I did, and I'm not going to pass the blame on to anyone else. Nevertheless, you're angry because of what I did. By the way, do you like my new teeth? She suddenly changed the subject, showing me her newfound front incisors. As cute as ever. And how are your boyfriends doing there? I asked casually. You don't have to be so rude, Vince. She pouted slightly and shrugged her shoulders. I try not to pay attention to any stories or nonsense gossip about them. Then, kind of dreamily, Ginny said, If I had a wish and I knew that it would definitely come true, I would wish you to arrive with your flowers 10 minutes earlier. Then we'd still be together, and I wouldn't have made the worst mistake of my life. How touching, Ginny. But even if you had a magic lamp and a personal genie, he must not be in too much of a hurry to fulfill your wishes. Where do you work now? I got a full-time job as a secretary at the stonemasonry company. The same daily routine. She waved her hand. Only now there is no husband to return home to after work. It's all my fault. Ginny sighed again, staring at her folded hands on the table. Well, enough about me. What are your plans after you're released? Leave the state, I snapped. Here I still get hate mail every week for ruining the career of the great Nolan. I'll probably just try to live unnoticed for a few years. Is there any place in your plans for a dirty dove? She cast the line with cautious hope. The British euphemism, a soiled dove, coined back in the 19th century, more literary than colloquial, implied a woman with a tarnished reputation. In the rougher street jargon, that's what fallen women were called. Well, answer me this question. Why did you decide to throw us out? I wish I could give you a reasonable answer, but I don't think I can. She sighed dejectedly. That's exactly why at the moment I just want to get out of here and leave, alone. But thanks for the offer. The memories of the good times that you and I once had helped me get through this ordeal. Well, if you change your mind, you know where I work. Know that you will always be welcome in my arms, Ginny announced with a lift in her voice and a certain amount of hope. My voice was full of irony. Until next time, thanks, but no, I don't need that anymore. Ginny's tears slowly rolled down her saddened face. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Leaving the past behind. It was a cloudy and unfriendly day when, staring out the window with a detached gaze, I took a minibus to the bus station in the city center. The roads, worn by thousands of tires, were dry, but the half-empty sidewalks were still wet after the morning rain. The grayness that I saw around me completely corresponded to my mood. I bought a bus ticket to get to the city where my parents lived. When I got there, they set aside an old pickup truck for me and a few $100s as help for the first time. My parents lived on a tight budget themselves, so it was very generous of them, and I was grateful for their support. My money ran out pretty quickly after 3 days and 2 states crossed. There were a lot of odd jobs along the way, but they were barely enough for food and lodging. So my old rattling clunker drove me further and further along the ribbon of road running away into the distance. To buy a cheap phone, I even had to spend some time begging on street corners. The only thing I really needed him for was to search for a job on the internet. Finally, I was lucky. I found one construction company that needed an electrician. Another advantage was that they paid in cash daily. Although I made new friends, I was no longer the sociable person I used to be. My current place of residence was a cheap motel room. The lady who lived next door, in the last room, was engaged in bed gymnastics with clients, and this kind of sport certainly attracted me. Let me clarify. I might have used her services, but I was still tight with money. One evening, she caught my scrutinizing glance at her curvy curves and slightly opened her robe. Well, are you ready to try? She winked. Only if you accept EUS, I replied, turning out the empty pockets of my pants. She laughed. Let me think about it for a second. No. I doubt you need an electrician, so I'm sorry, but I have nothing to offer you in return, I sighed, tamping my pockets back down. It's a pity. Although your body looks quite prominent, she drawled, glancing at me appraisingly. And I like men who can pin me down. I'll keep that in mind when I get lucky and get rich. I grinned, making a gesture over my head as if I were lifting my hat. Hey, wait a minute. The lady caught herself, as if she remembered something. One of my clients mentioned a project in which sparks needed to fly. But I'm sorry, I can't talk for a long time right now. I need to brush my feathers before the next meeting. I'll see you another time, okay? She glanced at her watch, waved at me, and disappeared through the door of her room. I chuckled. She and I were just nameless people trying to just get through another night. The sleep was heavy and very restless, because all night I imagined myself hugging the hot body of my neighbor to me, in various interesting positions. Damn, I desperately need to make love. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. It took several days before I saw my escort neighbor again. When we bumped into each other in the hallway, she handed me a piece of paper. I told my client that I know a good electrician. Here's the number, call him. I hope this case works out for you. Thanks. You didn't have to do that at all. I was genuinely surprised and grateful. I know. I'll see you later. She smiled, ran her finger along my cheek as she passed, and a minute later got into her modern sedan and drove away. Asterisk, 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 new features. I had to ask the guys I worked with how much they charge for a random order on the side. Armed with this knowledge, I dialed the number written on a piece of paper. A female voice answered, which frankly took me by surprise. Shit. I didn't want this lady to find out through me that her old man was on short notice with a lady of mild behavior I knew. Yes, hello. An acquaintance gave me your number. I heard that you need an electrician. Yes, and what is your price and when can you come? The lady on the phone asked. Well, I work from Monday to Friday until about 6 in the evening. If it's a small job, I could do it in the evening. If the problem is serious, then on Saturday and Sunday. The daily payment will be cheaper than the hourly one. I laid out my terms, sincerely hoping that she would not hang up immediately after I named my hourly and daily rates. Fortunately, our conversation turned out to be productive, and in the end, we exchanged names. Her name was Deb, and I found out the address where I needed to come. I was going to pop in there on Saturday morning and see what was going on. When Saturday came, upon arrival at the place, I was surprised to find that Deb's mansion was in a gated townhouse. After the security at the entrance made sure that they were waiting for me, I drove through the whole village to her house. There was only one car in the garage, so Mr. Deb must have been playing golf or something at the time. Deb herself turned out to be about my mother's age and surprisingly didn't wear any rings. Something didn't add up in the picture I had imagined. She needed to replace the grounded outlet in the bathroom, and in addition, she wanted to convert several standard lighting switches into ones that would turn on in response to movement. There were photographs of young people on the walls of the house, but none of them showed a figure resembling their father. There was only one pillow on Deb's bed. I was beginning to think that there was no mister in this house at all. I told Deb the total amount of work to be done, and she paid me in advance so that I could go to the store to get the necessary materials. After a short trip to Lowe's, I had everything I needed, and I finished my work well before lunch. While I was working, Deb brought me a soda and a tray of fresh cookies, and she settled down in an armchair nearby. So, which of my friends told you that I needed an electrician? Her sudden question caught me off guard. I froze at the half-turn of the screw being screwed in, and what was I supposed to say? Oh, was it the girl from the shabby motel I live in who accidentally found out that I was an electrician? I decided to answer with a half-truth. I don't know her name. She heard me talking about being an electrician and we chatted with her for a few minutes. Such reddish blonde, about tall, 1.65 meters. Oh, good. I have a few friends who may need your services. Do you mind if I tell them your name? On the contrary, it would be very cool, I replied enthusiastically. I have very little money right now, and extra money won't hurt me. What other talents do you have? Deb continued her interrogation, though in a rather sly voice and with a twinkle in her eyes. Now I was confused. She's close friends with an escort, or even a lesbian, but I swear she was flirting with me right now. At that moment, it was my turn to blush. My answer elicited a quiet chuckle from Deb as I tried to keep my face in front of the lady. I'm young, and I'm not afraid to work up a sweat, I bravely announced, sort of squaring my shoulders. Well, I'll let them know, Deb purred, as if pleased with the treat. My imagination, of course, would have liked more, but I stuffed the cash I received from her into my jeans pocket and drove away. However, less than 10 minutes later, I received a call from an unknown number. This is Vince. Oh, hi, I'm glad I caught you. I heard a pleasantly chirping female voice on the phone. Deb just gave me your number. I live 2 houses down from her. Can you stop by my place? No problem, I'll just have a snack and come straight to you. What is your address? Having memorized her address, I finished my sandwich and headed there. It took some time to overcome the security at the checkpoint, as I did not know the name of my new customer, only her address. In the end, they let me through. Unlike Deb's house, there were 2 cars parked in the garage next to the new customer's mansion, and both of its doors were open. I parked on the street. My battered clunker was, without a doubt, the oldest and least respectable wheeled vehicle in this affluent area. After my careful knock on the door, a very pretty but young lady came out from inside the house to meet me. I hesitated. Did you call about a casual job? She rolled her eyes, turned around, and shouted somewhere inside the mansion. I am! It's for you! Then she spun around, shaking her fluffy, and I would add, a magnificent mane of hair that descended almost to her waist and immediately disappeared, leaving me standing on the threshold. When a similar but older lady appeared, I immediately noticed a clear family resemblance. You must be Vince. She nodded and smiled in greeting, and immediately attacked me with questions. Do you replace ceiling fans? What about light switches with motion sensors? Oh, and I also need more outlets in the garage. Yes, and yes again. Have I answered all your questions? I grinned, meaningfully shaking the suitcase with tools I had brought in front of me. The lady nodded, beaming again, and made a smooth, inviting gesture. Then come in here. After writing down everything she wanted to fix, I asked a question. Have you already bought what you want to install? By the way, should I just call you the daughter's mom who rolls her eyes? She laughed at my words. I'm Nancy. It was Jolene. She's waiting for her boyfriend and is very annoyed that he's still not there. Forgive her for that. No, I didn't buy anything. If you want, we can go to Lowe's and buy whatever you need. Wait a minute. How much will it cost to install all these things? I sketched out my rough calculations of expenses and my work and handed her a piece of paper. She scanned it quickly and nodded again. Well, let's go. Will you drive? Of course. Well, my confidence didn't last long, exactly until she saw my old car. Oh no, perhaps it would be better if I drove myself, and we can put all the necessary things in my trunk and in the back seat. All right, if you insist, I shrugged, especially since it's been a long time since I've ridden on such cool wheels as yours, if at all. It took me until almost sunset to finish all the projects at Nancy's house. Jolene didn't take her eyes off me while she was angry all day and evening because her boyfriend had missed an appointment. For today's 2 jobs with Deb and Nancy, I earned almost $1,000, including tips, which both ladies, impressed by my skills, added to the rates. If you have never lived day to day relying only on cash in your pocket, you will not be able to understand what the fear of being robbed is when you have some decent amount. So late in the evening, returning home, I was on guard, suspecting that anyone who met me, just by looking at me, could say with certainty that my pocket was warming a whole $1,000. So what does that mean? In order to keep my nerves in relative order, my first task on Monday will be to open a current account and receive a debit card at the nearest bank. Asterisk, 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 Ashley. With the money deposited in the bank, I felt much more confident and ventured out into the city on Monday evening. No matter how excited I was at the thought of paying my escort neighbor for love, for some reason I couldn't decide on it. Instead, I went to a local diner and sat on a stool at the bar. I purposefully did not stare around, but nevertheless I noticed several ladies, especially for Best Weapon Dalen, located in the hall. Are you going to stare at your beer all night? Suddenly, a mocking female voice sounded in my ear. Some of us ladies have purposely dressed up to impress, and you're not even looking our way. I half turned in my high chair and met the gaze of a pretty lady who had imperceptibly appeared behind my back and was now waiting for my answer, arms akimbo and eyebrows raised. I took my time, appraising her slender figure from head to toe and back, and then answered, Yes, you really look great. She must have expected more from me, and her cheeky grin faded a little. After a short pause, she continued, Is that all? Won't you ask me to dance? Aren't you going to buy me a drink? Nah, I see you're hunting, I grinned in turn. I think I'll let you take the initiative. Rolling her eyes dramatically and snorting disdainfully, she turned away and returned to the table with her friends. I suspect that I received some offensive epithets when she explained to them what an ass I turned out to be. Actually, I just went in for a drink and felt a little sorry for myself. Can't a guy do this without being molested? It took about half an hour when the only girl who didn't go out on the dance floor came and sat next to me. I've been watching you for a while and noticed that you don't keep an eye on guys, so I suppose you have some kind of problem with women, she chimed in, drawing a rather logical conclusion from her observations. No, I replied shortly, immediately correcting myself. More precisely, not anymore. Then what's your problem? The stranger was surprised. I need time to learn how to live normally again. Now she nodded, and there was some understanding in her eyes. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. Now I'm just enjoying my beer and what I see. I smoothly circled the space of the bar with the neck of the bottle. And what are your reasons for being here? My friends and I like to come here sometimes to drink and dance. You guys all think you're going to get lucky, but that's not why we're here. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of girls who come here in search of thrills. By the way, married ones too if you like a little risk in everyday life. Who would have thought that in a small town like this, such events are held in the late evenings? I grinned, taking another sip of my beer. We don't consider ourselves a small town, the girl protested with some touchy defiance in her voice. And you're probably one of those dudes who came here straight from the big city? Yes, you could say that, I didn't argue, even though I've never been to nightclubs. Why? You don't look like some kind of nerd. she kind of complimented me. I got married early. Money was tight, so in the evenings we went to hang out with friends or to the cinema. As I understand it, family life didn't work out too well because I don't see the ring stripe on your finger. Bingo, I saluted with my beer to the curiosity and insight of a stranger. Well, I came here to dance, and if you're not going to invite me right now, then I'll catch up with you later. And yes, my name is Ashley. And I'm Vince. It was nice chatting with you, Ashley. I nodded at her, as if I hadn't taken a clear enough hint. As you can see, I'm really good at making women roll their eyes and shake their heads in disbelief. Lying in bed that night, I realized that today I didn't need love so much as casual companionship. A simple conversation with Ashley lifted my mood and gave me a lot of positive energy. After that foray into the bar, I became something of a regular at the watering hole, dining there, if you can call it that, almost every night. I was drawn there not to pick up someone for the night, but just to have a heart-to-heart chat. The next time Ashley and her gaggle of girlfriends showed up at the bar, I asked her to dance. Although I was then invited to join the company at their table, I refused. Conflicting emotions colliding with each other inside my mind made me think hard about which way to move on. Soon I received a call from one of Deb's friends, to whom she recommended me. The woman's address was in another part of the city. The plans for my Saturday morning were now set. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. A second chance? The following Friday evening, I was sitting on my favorite bar stool and crunching a pickle, tasting a hard-boiled egg and a mixture of salted pretzels, when I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. Lifting my head and looking into the bar mirror, I saw that she was standing behind me, smiling. "Hi, Ashley, where's your company?" I saluted her with half a cucumber on my fork as I turned to her. "They're watering the horses," she said. "Take your dinner and join me at the table." It sounded more like an order than a request, after which she turned and walked away, as if she knew in advance that I would follow her. However, curiosity made me do so. "Can I buy you a drink?" I suggested when I landed at the table she had occupied. "No thanks. I know you're tight on money, so I'll buy it for myself." "And how do you know about my financial situation?" I asked, squinting and popping a pretzel into my mouth. "Well, she drawled. "Let's see. I judge by the way you dress, what you drive, what you eat. Should I continue?" "It's not worth it," I grinned at her powers of observation. "Well, I admit, now I live a pretty simple life." "Let's get to know each other better," she suggested seriously. "I'll start with myself. I graduated from college, and now I work in the distribution center of a warehouse complex, where I'm unlikely to be able to use my education. I had a choice in front of me, to go somewhere or to live here until something or someone appears in my life. As you can see, I'm still here, in a small town, as you put it not so long ago. I'm not married, and I never have been. There is no regular boyfriend either. In short, it's all about me, and now it's your turn." Ashley stared at me with demanding curiosity, so I had to tell her story. "Well, I knocked up my high school sweetheart and never got to go to college. We got married quickly, and then she had a miscarriage. He caught her walking into a motel with her lover and drove his pickup truck into the same room where they were tumbling." Ashley's eyes widened and even her mouth slightly opened at such amazing news. "Spent some time in prison because that guy now uses a wheelchair. He got divorced while he was serving his sentence. I'm here now. In short, it's all about me," I grinned. "Are you serious about this?" she asked incredulously. I rummaged through my phone looking for an online article about my case, and then pushed it across the table for her to read. It took a couple of minutes before she handed the phone back. "So, do you still want to get to know each other better?" I asked her a question while she studied my face with concentrated interest. "It must have been a big shock in your life," Ashley suggested thoughtfully, slowly tracing circles with her index finger on the cracked tabletop. "Do you think so? Well, believe it or not, I never planned to physically harm them. I just wanted to shock and scare them. However, in the eyes of the law, my motives meant nothing. While I was sitting in that prison cell, my heart froze. I've only been free for about a month." "Looks can be deceiving," she said, still eyeing me. "Is there anything else I should know about you?" "I do electrical work for a guy who pays me in cash. In addition, recently on weekends, I started traveling on private applications for electrical work in order to earn a few extra bucks." "Have you ever had problems with the law? I mean, other than leaving tire tracks on an X?" Continuing her questioning, she rested her cheek on her palm and tilted her head to one side. No, there were not even fines for violating traffic rules. I just snapped that day and paid dearly for it. How much do you plan to spend here tonight? Ashley asked, suddenly changing the subject. About 20, why? I have a suggestion. Let's go to the store and buy you decent clothes. She managed to surprise me. The devil and the angel sitting on my shoulders were fighting fiercely with each other. Woman, is there a problem? A woman, trouble. Okay. Having made up my mind internally, I accepted her offer. Getting out from behind the table, she quickly left the bar and got behind the wheel. Why are you doing this? Having paid for the beer and caught up with Ashley already on the street, I asked, stopping for a second at the driver's door of her car. Because you won't do it for yourself. You're too young. Your life has just begun, and it's time to move forward. And what will it give you? I asked another question that popped into my head as I walked around the car and got into the passenger seat. If I still think you're a good guy, I think I can ask a lonely cowboy to ask me out, she replied, turning on the ignition. Well, inspired by this prospect, I spent $30 that evening, but I bought a few shirts and a couple of pairs of trousers, after fitting under the appraising supervision of Ashley. After she finished shopping, she drove me back to my car. When I got out of her car, I sincerely thanked my new friend. Thank you, Ashley. Can I take you out sometime? Huh, I thought you'd never ask again, she grinned. Put on one of your new outfits and meet me at the movie theater at the mall tomorrow at 6 p.m. Yes, the night after that was very restless, and I tossed and turned in bed for a long time, overcome by various thoughts and restless hopes, until he finally fell asleep. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. On Saturday morning, according to the tradition that has already developed in recent weeks, I worked part-time on one of the private orders. I already had almost $1,600 in my bank account, but I put aside $50 to pay for the upcoming evening with Ashley. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was ready to go out, when, after meticulously examining myself once again, I suddenly realized that I looked stupid in the only pair of shoes I had. These, so to speak, weekends, they are casual work shoes, now did not go well with my updated, more presentable and expensive jeans. So I went back to the thrift store and found a decent pair for myself, and for less than $10. Now I was ready to go out into the world. What I thought was a date turned out to be a double date. Ashley met me in the company of her friend and her boyfriend. Well, yes, when in the eyes of others you are none other than a recently released convicted criminal, I think it's not surprising that people want to protect themselves. Nevertheless, the film itself and the drinks ordered after the session were quite pleasant. Unfortunately, I found myself excluded from most of the company's conversations because Ashley and her friends had a lot of their college memories, and I couldn't tell or add anything appropriate to their lively conversation. It was doubly unfortunate that Ashley didn't seem to notice my isolation at all. However, I liked the kiss on the lips and I enjoyed hugging her. Warmth and intimacy, that's what I missed the most. At the end of our meeting, I handed Ashley a piece of paper with a short note and my phone number. Now you have my number, I told her. I don't have yours. Call me if I didn't scare you off. She whispered, I'll call you, hiding the piece of paper in the neckline of her blouse and hugging and kissing me again. Asterisk, 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 aftershock. I was very pleased with how things were going, but alas, it didn't last very long. On Tuesday evening, I was filling up my pickup truck when I saw Ashley walking across the street, smiling, arm in arm with a guy and engaged in a pleasant conversation. The couple was heading to a nearby restaurant. Yes, even though we were only platonically together all this time, but this picture struck me like a lightning bolt and made my heart contract. In an instant, the past came flooding back to me, and I couldn't handle it. Rage, mental pain, helpless resentment, and bitterness of humiliation, all these emotions came down at the same time, tormenting my incurable soul to the end. Just when I convinced myself that Ginny couldn't hurt me anymore, the memory of her pierced me again. Fate, or karma, whatever you want to call it, has once again dealt me a stunning blow in the gut. My fight-or-flight instincts kicked in again, but this time I decided that the collision wasn't worth it, and that the grass should be greener elsewhere. Apparently, I wasn't ready for any kind of relationship. It wasn't Ashley's fault. Since my motel room was paid for by Friday, I had a few days left to decide which way to steer the wheels of my trusty pickup truck. It turned out to be even easier to make a decision when the guy I worked for said he knew a man who needed an electrician. So on a crisp and clear Friday morning, I was already on my way, heading for a destination that was about 500 miles away, when my cell phone suddenly beeped somewhere on the road. I answered the call without hesitation. "Hi, Vince, where have you gone?" Ashley's familiar, rather cheerful voice came on the line. "I found a job in another city. You never called, so I couldn't tell you about my departure. Thank you for helping me get out of the rut," I answered with sincere gratitude, having overcome my first, not too pleasant feelings. "When will you be back?" The gaiety in her voice, which had dropped by half a tone, disappeared somewhere. "I don't think I'll be back, but I'll add you to my contact list in case our paths ever cross again." Now her voice sounded sad, perhaps even tinged with resentment. "Maybe I should have called earlier." "Maybe, but it's okay." I tried to fill my voice with warmth and gentleness. "I enjoyed our short time together. Take care of yourself, Ashley." A few more minutes of pleasant memories, and my time with Ashley came to an end. Although my parents would have liked me to visit them on holidays, they still understood that this was not the best thing for me to do in the next few years. For all of us, there was hope that sooner or later another star basketball player would appear, and all the memories of the Nolan story would remain only on yellowed newspaper editorials in city archives and in the dusty backyards of history. I've dated a few girls and even went with one of them to a swingers meeting, a partner swap party as they put it themselves. When you become just someone's pass to a party, it tends to have a demoralizing effect. "Cold fish" is how one girl described me after our not-too-successful date. Well, she was right about something. After all the vicissitudes of life, my heart was safely hidden in a solid shell. Do you know this saying? The best way to keep your horse undefeated is to leave it in the stable? About the same could be said about my heart and feelings. You can't hurt them if they never see sunlight. It took 3 whole years before I returned home to visit my parents. My business was now going so well that I could afford to fly on airplanes. The basketball team of our city has reached the next playoffs, so the environment has become much safer for me. In addition, no one near me ever mentioned Ginny, which I, no doubt, appreciated very much while I was in my native Penates. The return flight passed without any memorable incidents. I even had a casual chat on the plane with a lady next to me, a lady about my age, which helped us both brighten up the flight time. The conversation was not binding, so although we parted on a friendly wave, we did not exchange names or phone numbers with her. Asterisk, 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 New York, New York. My name is Heather. I work in a cafeteria in a large office building downtown near Broadway. I am single because the paths I walk have not yet crossed those where you can meet Mr. The One. Recently, I've been intrigued by a single guy who dines with us every day. Interestingly, he always puts a piece of cherry pie on his tray. His badge says, Vince. The guy seems to work in an investment bank, but he doesn't dress like an ordinary banker. There's just something about him. I don't even know. Something that hooked me. Since this Vince wasn't wearing any rings, I steeled myself and decided to take a chance. One day, when he was already putting away his tray, I told my boss that I needed to go to the bathroom. Instead, I waited at Vince's exit, and when he came over, I just handed him a note that said, "Call me sometime, Heather," and my phone number. When I blushed with excitement and awkwardly handed him this piece of paper, I gave him a quick glance and smiled sheepishly. He smiled back and just nodded in agreement before disappearing through the doors. A few days later, we met for dinner. Nothing special, just a cafe next to the house where I lived. Our conversation opened my eyes to many things and turned out to be surprisingly frank. Vince talked about how he worked as an electrician and handyman for an investment company. What shocked me the most was that before that he was a convicted criminal. Vince told me about his sad personal story, and to confirm his words, he showed me a news article on his phone about the trial against him. "Vince, it happened 4 years ago. Do you still miss her?" I asked him. "No, actually not at all," he replied calmly and rather distantly. "Then how come a handsome guy like you doesn't even have a girlfriend?" "It's a question of risk versus reward," Vince said, looking me in the eye seriously. "If I open my heart and soul, emotionally give my best in a relationship, but everything goes wrong again, can I break down again? I ask myself this every time. Well, you know." "So it's a matter of trust?" "I think so. If my trust in a girl is not reciprocated by her, can I trust myself that I will adequately cope with such a situation? The last time I decided to go on a date, Even though we had never even kissed, I soon saw her hugging another guy, and all the old and, as I thought, buried pain returned at once. When was that? 3 years ago. Since then, I have kept my distance from any serious relationship, he said, making air quotes on the last words. Good, I think I understand you. We'll move slowly, but only if you promise to talk to me and ask me before you do anything. I don't want things to get messed up because one of us suggested something that wasn't really true. Vince looked at me curiously. What if I still don't want a relationship? What is it? He asked, rubbing his chin with his fingers. Then we won't meet here tomorrow for dinner, and then we won't go to the cinema down the street. I slyly outlined to him the likely future prospects. Vince had to make a decision now, whether we would move forward cautiously as a couple, or... I saw the want in his animated eyes. He reached across the table and I covered it with my palm. Vince stared at me for several long minutes, as if trying to penetrate my soul with his eyes and read what awaits him in the new book that opens in front of him, and then quietly said, "See you tomorrow." A flock of butterflies fluttered somewhere inside me, tickling my imagination with their light, almost weightless wings, as Vince silently left the cafe. A long, silent premonition timidly suggested that perhaps he was my Mr. the One. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The epilogue, was our rubbing together easy? Not at all. By nature, I am a sociable person, and Vince needed time to make sure that I belonged to him and only to him. He loves hugs no less than love itself. I can read a book sitting on his lap while he watches his favorite sport on TV. As soon as we became really close, Vince turned into a complete owner. In general, the mutual process of recognizing each other's habits and traits was not easy for both of us, but we survived. Knowing why Vince is exactly the way he is made it easier for me to understand and accept the peculiarities of his character. We've been married for 10 years now. At our wedding, I declined all requests to dance with the bride from everyone except Vince's father. I don't do any bachelorette parties, and I definitely invite Vince to join me when I go shopping with my girlfriends. Our union is rewarded with a 6-year-old daughter and a son who recently turned 3. In between, I had a miscarriage, after which we both needed counseling. Together with the counselor, we managed to convince Vince to attend several additional classes to help him finally sort out his past and let it go forever. Maybe my husband is a spoiled product in some sense, but in my store, he lies on a special shelf and will never be thrown away. I don't think I could ever find a man as loving as Vince. I know exactly why he became damaged, and every day I look in the mirror promising myself that I will never give him a reason to doubt my love. Life goes on.